This is Matt Russell, and welcome to the Daily FX Forum.
So here are the four pairs that I will be discussing this evening: the Euro Pound, the Aussie Kiwi, the Pound Swiss, and the Euro Swiss. So let's go ahead and pull up the charts. The first chart, let me go in order here, is the Euro Pound. If you recall, during yesterday's report, I mentioned how that 88.37 area might act as support, and it did. Prices did rally substantially off that, about 100 pips or so. And I also mentioned during yesterday's report that we might enter that trade, as soon as you heard that information. So if you're in the trade now, I would continue to stay in the trade. I might take just a little bit of profits off the table, maybe not half, maybe a third, maybe a quarter, but again, this depends on your exact position size, and hold the rest. I like the fact that prices got above these lows right here, so more if you want to lock in some gains, I might place a stop beneath this low here, which is 88.91, but for more conservative traders, I would keep that stop. I believe yesterday I said about 88, the 88.20 area or so. The next chart is the Aussie Kiwi, and if you recall during yesterday's report, I mentioned that we might use this price point as prices did find support near these lows, and that also we might look to enter if prices did drop maybe another 10 or 15 pips or so, which they did. So prices did rally, not that much, about 50 pips or so off those lows. So if you're in that trade, I would continue to stay in that trade. I really wouldn't take anything off the table here. With that being said, if prices do come back down, like this line is it's a little bit fuzzy here in terms of exactly where to draw it, either 24.32, or 24.32 or about 24.26. Those are the price points that you can choose from when drawing the line. So I would continue to stay in the trade, and maybe if prices do come down, I might tighten that stop a little bit now that we did have the initial bounce off the level. And that's always the way I kind of view these lines. It's like you don't know the magnitude of the bounce, but in this case we had a bounce, and obviously in the Euro Pound we had a much bigger bounce. But in this case there was a bounce. It was a much smaller bounce, and that's really all you can ask for from the market. So moving forward, maybe more aggressive traders might tighten that stop a little bit, maybe to the 24.10 area or something like that. The next chart is the Pound Swiss, and if you recall, this is the support line that I've been using for the past several reports, and I was waiting for prices to come back down and test this support line. Again, I don't have extremely high confidence because of this penetration here, but it looks to be holding right now, and this also, prices right now are at the line, about 69.02, so I would go ahead and enter maybe right at this price point, and place a stop about 75 to 100 pips beneath the line. Because this is a Pound Swiss, it's a little more volatile. But again, you have to expect that I am 100% incorrect with my analysis, and that will help you manage your risk properly. So if 75 to 100 pips is too much for your individual risk, then you might not enter the trade, or you might wait for prices to drop a little bit more, or you might, and I always recommend, if you're thinking about trading a smaller position size, go ahead and do so. The next chart is the Euro Swiss, and I realized this later on in terms of my analysis, exactly how to draw this support line. If you recall, I kind of abandoned that triangle idea. There's something else going on in the market, and I just wanted to view this in the most objective sense that I could. So I was using this lower support line. The issue was when I had the line up yesterday, I kind of had it a little bit lower than it should have been. But again, the prices really didn't move that much. We're only talking about 20 pips or so. So this line should be about here, and this is also a very important thing to understand when you're drawing lines, is that if you're using a price point, and in this case this is about 6 months back, the exact location of where you put this line is going to affect the end point of the line tremendously. So moving this line just up a little tiny bit here, like I was messing around with the line yesterday, so if you, and this is what I'm talking about, this line still looks like it's solid here in terms of using the price points, but then if we zoom in, we could see that this is kind of contradicts yesterday's analysis in terms of we did have a bullish engulfing candle, but it's testing this line from the opposite side, and we can see there's a little bit more confirmation on the previous support line here. But again, because of what's going on fundamentally, I just don't trust my analysis, and if I don't trust it, you shouldn't trust it at home. But with that being said, more aggressive traders, I like the fact that prices did find support here, broke beneath it, albeit very slowly, and then we had the bullish engulfing, and prices have not been able to get back above the line. So again, I'm really leaving this up to you guys at home, but I might possibly have a slight bearish bias against this line because these price points seem to be holding. holding. But again, it's really up to you and your individual risk parameters. Again, this is Matt Russell, and please stay tuned for a preview of the DailyFX forums. I want to take this opportunity to formally welcome you all to the DailyFX forums. I want to go through the process of how I personally access the forums and how maybe you at home, if you want to access the forums in the future, might do so. The first thing you would do is go to www.dailyfx.com, and that will bring up, obviously, dailyfx.com, and usually there on the upper right hand corner I'll go ahead and click on where it says forum, and that will bring up the first page of the forums. And this view, I personally don't use this view, but this view actually shows you the most recent posts on all the threads within the different sections and a little detail about those posts, so you can read through and see if there's something catches your interest. But personally, I go ahead and just click on forums and view them in the more traditional sense. Now, these are different threads within the forum. There's a section on education, such as DailyFX course instructor tips, which would be good for newer traders, and then for more advanced traders. And I just want to go ahead, personally, the way I use the forums is I would go through the individual threads, just looking for trade ideas, maybe looking at charts, looking at certain lines that maybe I didn't put up on my chart, but another trader might have put up on their chart. I tend to shy away from using direct trade recommendations from other forum members, but it helps me to sort of even out my analysis, make sure that I'm seeing things with the right mind in terms of I might be missing stuff that other traders can see, and that's my personal way of using the forum. Every trader is going to be a little bit different in how they use it. So if you want to ask questions, if you want to become an active participant of the members, you would have to go ahead and register. So that's what I'm going to go through now, is the registration process. So assuming you're brand new to the forums, or maybe you've been here a few times and you're not really sure how it works, so I just want to walk through again the registration process. This would be the front page where you would access, or the previous page. You'd have the same little box here on the left hand side. Obviously, my username and password are already filled out here, but assuming you're a new member, you would click on where it says register, and that will bring up the registration page. If you give me one moment here while my browser loads. And actually first we're going to have some terms of service and DailyFX forum rules. I do suggest reading through the forum rules. Obviously, profanity and spam and things like that are not allowed, but it also gives you insight on how to use the forum and how different traders can use it in terms of their individual needs. So you would go down to the bottom there, you'd click on where it says I have read all the rules, and then you would go ahead to the register the formal registration page, and that will bring up here. And you can go ahead and select the username, and how about we'll use 4x, and that name is already in use, so maybe add a few more x's there. Again, it really, your individual username is up to you, and you go ahead and fill in your password, your email address. Now, the most difficult aspect of registration for the DailyFX forums will be figuring out these letters in the box here. Now, I'm a semi-intelligent person, but I have a very difficult time figuring out which letters and numbers to use. Now, there is a reason for this madness. It helps with security, but I would suggest just going ahead and keep on clicking that refresh image until something comes through that you can actually identify and see. Then you can go ahead and enter your birthday, but you can decide whether or not to display that to other forum members. And then also, if you were referred by somebody, you can enter that information there. The time zone, that should default to your computer, but you should double check and make sure. And then you can opt in, and I would suggest opting in for these emails in terms if the administrators want to go ahead and send you some notices about the forum, and then you would complete registration. Now what happens is they would send you an email to the email address that you put up here, and that email will include a link, and all you would have to do is go ahead and click on that link, and that link will bring you inside the forum, and you would now be a member of the DailyFX forums. Again, this is Matt Russell. Thanks for listening.